in a hearing aimed at making parents more aware. Okay, now if the focus is making parents more aware, that's fine. If the focus is censorship, that's not fine. Okay, now I wouldn't want my kids listening to violent lyrics or music that promoted violence or anything like that. I won't let my kids watch Beavis and Butthead, for example. But for the reason that I think Beavis and Butthead are a couple of ill-mannered little punks who treat their adults, treat their elders with absolutely total lack of respect, and that's why I won't let my kids watch it. My 12-year-old son and 4-year-old daughter are forbidden from watching Beavis and Butthead. Although, to tell you the truth, I'm gonna be honest here. The other night, my wife was helping my son with his homework, and my daughter and I were watching TV. She's only 4 years old, and I was flipping channels, and she goes, "Put on cartoons, put on So I was looking for cartoons anything where I could find animation. So I'm flipping, I'm going across basketball game, football game, and I finally find, something that looks like animation. I flipped it on there for a second. I wasn't really paying much attention. I had the volume down. I was reading, and all of a sudden I looked up. It was Beavis and Butthead, and off it went. And she, of course, started, I like that. No, you don't. You don't need to see that garbage. But I wonder how many of you think, for example, that a kid watching Murphy Brown last night might be prompted to smoke marijuana, although it was portrayed as an attempt to ease the illness that she felt after undergoing some chemotherapy. All right, that's in the news also. Marv Albert now accusing his accuser. In his first interview since he pleaded guilty to assault, he tells Barbara Walters in a 2020 interview that will be aired tomorrow night that both his former lover Patricia Perhatch, or Vanessa Perhatch, and his second accuser, Patricia Masden, are liars. So both of them, you got to watch this. And here I am promoting TV shows, but I've got to tell you very honestly something that'd be interesting to watch. So Marv selling satanic icons in the form of trolls, gargoyles, and African carvings. Jay Knight has a business next door.
We're opposite them. We face them. And we're a bench away, about 30 feet.
And Mr. Knight says some days LaTorre doesn't show up until late and keeps his place covered up with a big blue tarp. Many parents apparently aren't getting the message about secondhand smoke. About 4 in 10 adult smokers have...
Rock group Marilyn Manson. And senators are hearing today about violent rock lyrics, which one North Dakota man is blaming for the suicide of his 15-year-old son. I wondered whether you think that rock music can prompt a kid to commit suicide, and I tied that in with last night's episode of Murphy Brown, during which she and Jim Dial, who is I guess the older guy on her TV news show, they smoke marijuana because she's undergoing chemotherapy, and it'll ease her nausea, her discomfort while undergoing chemotherapy. The character Murphy Brown, not the actress Candice Bergen, has been diagnosed with breast cancer. She underwent surgery and is now, of course, going the post-operative chemotherapy route. And her reaction, of course, violent nausea, and so she last night smoked marijuana on screen. And I don't know whether she was really smoking marijuana, but she and Jim Dial were actually smoking something that looked like a marijuana cigarette. I'm sure it was probably just tobacco, which, as we all know, is far worse than marijuana. Bob's in the car in Duluth. 404-367-WGST, 1-800-FON-WGST. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Dave. Welcome to Atlanta.
Thank you.
Well, I thoroughly enjoy your show.
Thank you very much.
I was watching this Murphy Brown episode last night. Actually, I just walked into the room while it was on, and my 8-year-old son was sitting there watching this. And in school, they're talking about how bad drugs are for you. And then he comes home, he's flipping through the channels, and he sees this episode of Murphy Brown talking about how wonderful marijuana is for you.
Well, as in medicinal use, but go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Now, I'm stuck with this, trying to describe to my son how bad marijuana is for you and how it can ruin your life. I've taken him to drug rehabilitation centers.
You have?
Yes.
Already?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm trying to drive home this fact.
Uh-huh.
And you're on primetime TV we have an example of the wonderful use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. I don't understand why television does this.
Well, all right, let me ask you, as you may have heard me say before, don't you think it is up to you to be monitoring what your children are watching on
Why,
TV?
there's no doubt about that. And I was downstairs working. I come upstairs. He's flipping through the channels.
You know, I'll tell you what, though. You know where this really, to me, and I know TV is influential, and I know other kids are influential as well. But I've got to tell you very honestly, Bob, I think that the parents have far more impact on a kid's life than their friends, than TV, than anything else. And if you have a good relationship with your children, I'm not saying this to challenge you, I'm just saying you generally, not you personally, but if parents have a good relationship with their kids, and their kids respect them and understand them, I think you are around your kids far more than their friends are. Well, I don't know if that's true. It depends on how much you're working and whether you try to be as much as you can. You try. I have been telling my son for as long. I remember when he was a little kid, when he couldn't speak, or was just learning to speak, we used to tell him about drugs, because it would come up periodically, and he would say, "Don't drink drugs." He was just learning how to talk. And my wife and I still laugh about it because it was cute the way he said it. He was having a hard time, forming words. But the fact remains that you try to teach your kids from as early on as possible about the dangers attendant to drugs and alcohol and smoking, cigarettes and so forth, and running out into traffic and touching a hot stove and all these other things. And I think in the final analysis, if you have a good relationship with your child or children, no matter what they see on TV, I think you can drive home the point far better than TV or even their friends can. Because I'll tell you very honestly, I grew up in the late 1960s and early 70s. A lot of my friends got heavily involved with drugs. I did not. My parents loved me. I know their parents loved them. Three kids in particular with whom I grew up had a nuclear family. The parents weren't divorced. I knew the fathers. I knew the mothers. My parents knew the fathers. My parents knew the mothers. These were nice people who adored their kids. They got involved with drugs. I don't know why. Why didn't I? And I, you think about it. I think about it often because it continues to be such a major issue. But I think that in the final analysis, you have far more to do with your kid than TV or radio. Thanks very much for the call. John is in Morrow. You're on the Dave Stone Show. 404-367 WGST. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Okay, I have 2 points to make. The first being on the Murphy Brown episode last night. I agree that marijuana has medicinal uses and medicinal purposes that have been documented and proven by doctors.
Marinol.
Yes, but bottom line is it is not legal to go down to the corner,
right,
buy a lid, come up and smoke it. And I don't think that needs to be portrayed on network television to our children, because they are getting the wrong message from that. They're saying, oh, it's okay. Well, Daddy had a hard day. It's okay for him to go take a drink or go smoke a little funny cigarette.
Well, again, I think if you explain to your kids, like this last gentleman was explaining to his son what this was and what this was about, I think you can explain this to your children and say this is a portrayal of someone who is very ill. Yeah, and this is an issue, and explain to them that it's a big issue. Some people believe that medicinal use of marijuana is okay, others don't, and just portray it to your child that way and say, we don't think it's a good idea, we don't condone usage of any type of drug unless it's prescribed by a doctor, and leave it at that. And then you have to have confidence in yourself as a parent, and you have to have confidence in your ability to communicate with your child. The same way you have to have, confidence in your ability to communicate to a customer if you're a salesman, or to a prospective employer if you're looking for a job. If you can't communicate, you've got a problem, and that's the one thing parents must be able to do with their kids.
Okay,
I'm not preaching. I'm just telling you, John, that in the final analysis, you have a far greater impact on your kids than anything else. 404-367 WGST, 1-800-FON WGST. I've got Charles and Canton, Aaron, Shelley, Mal, and Mike. I'll get to all of them.
When he visited the grammar school, and the little girl got up and said, "Do you ever smoke marijuana?" "Well, oh yeah, I smoke marijuana, but I didn't inhale." "Well, would you do it again?" "Well, if I did again, I might try inhaling." You remember that?
Of course, but that
Okay.
two different occasions,
That's the
but that's all right.
president. Now, wait a minute. That's the president. Now, the president says that. Murphy Brown puts on a station there. If he would have said that, since it's a fictional program, if he would have said, now that marijuana has been approved by AMA, Jim, go get me some, and that'll help relieve these pains that I have, I would have accepted that. Had the AMA gotten a proof for that to be used for medicinal purposes. But as long as there is no program on any station should be allowed to more or less advertise the use of marijuana.
Or advocate.
It's against the law.
I understand that.
But what can you expect if the President of the United States, and most of these people that are calling in, I'd like to ask you to ask them, who did they vote for this last election for president? If they voted for Clinton, they have no right to comment on Murphy Brown either. Because Murphy Brown just following what the President said he would do.
404-367-WGST, 1-800-FON, WGST. Aaron's in the car in Sandy Springs. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello. I am a 14-year-old, and way earlier you were wondering what Jim Dial's real name was. It's Charles Kimbrough.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to give you a teenage perspective, and also I wanted to say that I do not do drugs.
Okay.
And I'm a 14-year-old student, and about the Marilyn Manson and Beavis and Butthead thing earlier.
Yeah, you're breaking up. You're on a car phone. I know that, and we're in a bad cell, so try to go. There you go. You're much better now. Go ahead.
Okay. What ended up happening, I saw two different things with Marilyn Manson. I saw the MTV Awards, where he was basically wearing a girdle and mooning all of the crowd, and he also used profanity, as in, why would you want to go into a place with a bunch of, well...
Please don't use profanity.
I know.
Point well made. Go ahead.
And he was speaking of heaven on the awards. But then, I saw another view of him, and that was an interview afterwards, and I discovered that basically everything that he does is all an act. And he just does that for money and everything.
I understand that, and so did Jimi Hendrix, and so did Jim Morrison, and all the rest of them. And I think we know what happened to Jim Morrison and Jimi Hendrix. But look, I understand it's an act, but by the same token, kids are influenced by acts. Although I am not saying that Marilyn Manson is responsible for this kid committing suicide in North Dakota. You know, I think there was a problem with this kid far before, or long before he ever heard of or listened to Marilyn Manson. I don't think there's any question about that. So I think it's up to the parents again, and parents must be the determining factor in what their kids see on TV, what their kids listen to. And if the parents say, you're not going to listen to that crap in my house, fine, so be it. And it's up. But you can't go and say that Marilyn Manson caused this kid to commit suicide. And I hope you're not saying that.
I am not saying that because I do not believe that. If this kid is crazy enough to commit suicide, then that would be the same as those 39 people in San Diego that believed in the Heaven's Gate cult. And if you're going to talk about Marilyn Manson like that, Marilyn Manson is clean. He does not use drugs. If you're going to blame somebody for that, blame the lead singer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I have no clue what his name is, but he admitted on live TV, on MTV, that during the summer, he was an active heroin user.
I know. Well, I'm glad you don't use drugs, and I'm glad you're not influenced by those things. You sound like a nice kid. I really mean that. Thank you very much for the call, Aaron. I appreciate